Hallo, herzlich willkommen bei einer neuen Ausgabe von Schieders Melange. Und mein Gast ist heute ein sehr lieber Kollege aus dem Europäischen Parlament. Deswegen werden wir das ganze Gespräch auch auf Englisch machen. Und daher stelle ich ihn auch gleich mal auf Englisch vor, nämlich Domènec Ruiz Devesa. You are a member of the European Parliament, Spanish socialist, born in 78, and you're coming from Alicante, which is a very nice, but we can say it more or less to every region in Spain.
Genau.
But also Alicante. And I invited you because you have a lot of responsibilities here in the European Parliament. Maybe we can touch them also at the end, but mainly because everybody was watching Spanish elections. So maybe to help us a little bit and to talk today on the results and on the outcome, which is we had an increase of the Spanish People's Party, the Partido Popular. We had an increase of the PSOE, the Socialist Party of Spain. We had Vox, which is extreme right, which went a little bit down, but let's say performed less than expected or people were afraid of.
Right.
And then we have this, whatever it is, UNITA, Sumar, LEF.
Yes.
So.
And the nationalists.
And the nationalists, or the secessionists,
Regionalists.
or regionalists, whatever. So first of all, on the result, how you would say?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity and for the nice things you said about me in German. I was able to understand that much. And for your interest in Spanish politics. I think this was a very important election for all of Europe, I think, because we were seeing a trend with the governments in Sweden and Finland and also Italy, of, unfortunately, I will say, the traditional so-called pro-European right entering in partnerships in these three cases with the far right, which is, I think, a very bad thing. And what was going on in the campaign for these elections in Spain was basically the same playbook. In a way that I will say backfired on Partido Popular, the Spanish false party, People's Party, because it was too obvious that the only partner they will have for a coalition was Vox, the far right. And they were also, in a way, running the campaign implying that that will be their partner. Since we had regional elections first in May, that it is true did not go well in general for the left, for our party. Our party was stable, but other allies did not perform sufficiently well. Some regional governments started to have this alliance of Partido Popular and People's Party with Vox. And immediately they started to implement very regressive policies like forbidding plays they consider immoral, plays by Virginia Woolf, for instance, or removing the LGBTI flag from city councils and so on, because there were also alliances at the local level. So it was very clear what it will happen at the national level.
Maybe we have to make also clear that in the last period, especially the Sanchez government made a lot of reforms in this against machismo, women's rights, LGBTI, equal society.
Absolutely. So this was one important factor why they were not able to form a majority after the election, because they fell short, Partido Popular and Vox, and also because we ran a campaign which was very focused, Pedro as party leader and candidate, talking about all the progressive policies in these fields, but also on minimum wage. They will have increased minimum wage very substantially, increases in public pensions, also improvements in the labor regulation to promote permanent employment and not short-term contracts. So I think these topics really resonated in the working class and the middle class, and we managed, to prevent this outcome that was, in a way, many media were expecting, to have this far right government in Spain.
But you also, let's say, your slogan was Adelante, means voran or
forward.
Forward, which is, I think, putting it in one word, all these reforms which you mentioned, and also showing the difference to the center right and extreme right, which are, let's say, backward oriented. But would you say that the PP made a mistake in wanting to go into the bed of power with the Vox? Or
I think so.
would you say that Spanish people don't want to have Vox in government?
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the reasons. I think we ran a good campaign with the right topics, but in addition, there was the fear to have the far right in power. For the first time since the death of Franco, the dictator friends with, Mussolini and Hitler in 1975. So obviously, the majority of the country didn't want that outcome. And also, I think it's also a very important factor, in a way, the fact that we have a society that has evolved a lot, as you were mentioning before, in terms of gay, for instance, equal marriage or gay marriage. We were one of the first countries in Europe, not the first, but in the pioneers on this topic. And also, Vox is a party that denies the concept of the gender violence. They claim there is no such thing as gender violence. There is family violence or just violence done by men or women, but not a specific,
Not domestic violence.
Exactly. And those are ideas that are not in tune with I think the majority of the society.
Maybe because I think the interesting question is also what lessons we can learn, and we have to mention in this point also that Spanish socialist government did well in these reforms of changing the society, but also did extremely well in, as you said, in social reforms, employment, and I think, which is also extremely important and more or less unique, in fighting inflation, successfully fighting inflation.
Yes.
While we have to say Austrian government is really doing a disaster, because still our
I remember we
Pedro
discussed...
Sanchez would commit suicide if he would have what Austrian government is now celebrating as low inflation.
Okay. I remember we discussed this topic in our group meeting in Vienna, precisely.
Yeah. We discussed in Vienna, and we have to say also that we all had been in Madrid just recently for a group meeting, and we could, let's say, smell also the Spanish society. So maybe before we discuss the outcome, so there is a result now, but the majority, the classical majority which the former socialist government had, did not work out anymore. So, and the rule is that the Feijóo the leader of the PP, had to look for majority. He failed. And now Pedro Sanchez, well, let's say, was proposed to the parliament, because in Spain the parliament has to elect the prime minister.
Right.
And he got majority. And now is the big issue in Spanish society on this, how to proceed with Catalans and other... However we would call this kind of movement. We have to say here in the European Parliament, they're in the Green Group, for example.
Right.
So
some of them. Some of them. Well, indeed, what happened is that we were just 1 percentage point behind People's Party in the election. So by convention, it was offered by the head of state, the king, the possibility to the leader of People's Party to have the first attempt, provided he wanted it, and indeed he wanted it, but it was clear he didn't have the majority. So after that, it was the turn of Pedro Sanchez, who indeed was able to form a majority. The majority is basically the same one as before, with one addition. It's the same. We have a party which is to our left, the former Podemos party now, called Sumar. It's a bigger coalition, but Podemos is also part of it, in the government. And then other parties, mainly regionalist and nationalist parties, supporting from the parliament. But in this time around, we needed to add the party of Carles Puigdemont, which, as you know, was president of Catalonia, then now for a while MEP in the parliament, because we couldn't form a majority without his party, which is a center-right nationalist party in Catalonia. And It was not easy to have a deal with him because, of course, he's in favor of independence of Catalonia. But we were able to have a basic agreement, which is, okay, we respect that you have this project, but we also need your contribution to the governance of the entire country, to elect the Prime Minister and to continue our progressive policies. If you agree from now on to pursue your political project within the boundaries of the Constitution, then we can have a deal. And this is exactly what happened.
But there is now this reform which also, let's say, is reducing the sentence which some of them...
It is true. This is also part of the political deal. We are proposing an amnesty bill to those that were involved in the independence process, because we believe that, many years have passed in the end. This happened in 2017. These are, of course, illegal acts that are against the Constitution, but they were politically motivated, right? And we believe that this should be resolved in the political domain, not anymore in the judiciary domain.
And could we also interpret, because the one is how the conservatives interpret this is against the unity of Spain and big demonstrations.
Against the rule of law.
Exactly. On the other side, we can also say, without liking the secessionist movement, it is a real problem in the society, and therefore simply to answer with the court on a political issue is not the best way, and maybe also after 6-7 years to calm down and
this is exactly the point.
How is in English? I don't know if it's English, but to offer the hand again.
Yes, to re-engage. I mean, we know that about half of the Catalan society is in favor of independence. The other is not. Actually, more than half, by a small
also those which
not.
say we have cultural language education,
of course.
Because there is a huge independence and autonomy in Catalonia.
Yes. Catalonia has one of the most developed, autonomous status, in Europe, not even in Spain. And I am myself a Catalan speaker, even though not from Catalonia, and I'm not a nationalist. So it's exactly
because
what
Alicante
you said. Yes, it's a part of the former kingdom of Aragon at the time. So we also speak Catalan. We call it Valencian, not to be polemical.
You're also the inventors of the paella. Huh?
Yes, we are. That no one challenges that.
Sometimes the Mallorquins.
But there is a competition between Alicante and Valencia about that.
Also?
Yes. Which one of the two is best?
I know which you would say, huh?
Of course, but I'm not impartial. No. But yes, we think exactly what you said, Andreas, and I help you also for helping me to explain this question to the wider audience here in Europe, in this case Austria. Because we think, okay, those were things that happened. They were not okay in terms of the law, but let's try to, be constructive for the future and not to have this open issue in the courts forever. And let's try to have a political resolution. Of course, we think that there are other ways other than independence to provide, support for the national aspiration that there is in Catalonia. For instance, we can have further federalization of the country. The country is very federal, but it could be more federal. So let's look at these other ways of accommodating this national feeling that we have in some regions in Spain.
And now maybe on Europe, because we are both members of the European Parliament, we, as you mentioned, also the historic background, and we see in Italy, which also, let's say, they had a terrible past with Mussolini and everything. There is now extreme right, post-fascist parties in power, prime minister. We have Austria, where since the year 2000, the conservatives in Austria always took also the extreme right to have their power. So the political morality is always over when it's about their influence, and their influence usually also ends up in not only positive effects on terms of corruption. We have, we of course, we see the results in the Netherlands, We have the opinion polls in Germany. We see Hungary. We saw Poland. So there is a tendency in Europe towards that the extreme right is regaining. What must be our answer?
I think we have to overcome identity politics. I think this is really key because I make a parallelism with Spain.
Yes.
What happened in Spain and what happens in Europe. We have seen 4 or 5 years, both in the European Union and in Spain, of progressive policies that are delivering for the people. Because here in Europe, we have supported the Green Deal. It's been implemented, very important to save our planet. We have, who would have thought, no, Andreas, think of 10 years ago, that Europe will have had a directive on minimum wages.
Exactly.
That makes it obligatory to all countries to have a minimum wage of 60% of the median wage. I mean, this is really big for the social dimension of Europe. We have also the directive on gender violence that is being processed. So I think this commission, with special protagonism of Social Democrats, has delivered. And remember in 2019, we asked von der Leyen, you want our support, then you need to have all these things, Green Deal, minimum wages, and so on. But there is a strange situation in which the politics overcomes the policies. So we have good policy results, but the far right is able, using identity politics, using fear, using anger, to improve the results. So we need to, in the next few months before the European election, to really showcase everything that we have done in the past 5 years in Europe, which is really good. Compare it with the Euro crisis. I mean, it's a totally different Europe. I mean, it's not austerity, it's solidarity, it's public support.
But I have an addition, because you have experienced now the PP in Spain, which was accepting everything from the extreme right just to get governors or other position mayors.
Yeah, right.
And we have seen now also in the last month here in the European Parliament that Manfred Weber, the leader of CSU Bavaria, but the PP group here in the European Parliament, that he also accepts, he forgets about the Green Deal and all the achievements, and he's also leaning to the extreme right. So I have the feeling that as soon as conservatives have the feeling that the extreme right is growing, they think, we must also be a little bit extreme right.
Yes.
And there is, in democracy, there is not a little bit anti-democratic. So how we work with this strategic situation, or can we explain to the voters, please, if you are in favor of a European which delivers, let's say a European democracy which is delivering, then even voting for the EPP is not a good answer.
I think so, because this is a very important point. I think, by the way, it is a mistake for the EPP to take this line, because you know that in politics, the original always wins over the copy. So never imitate the extremes, I will say. That's number one, but okay. But this is why the Spanish example, once again, is relevant. Because what we were able to avoid in Spain, but it was not possible to avoid in Finland, in Sweden, and in Italy, we have to avoid in the European election. So we really need the support of the people, also in Austria, for Social Democrats, for progressive forces, so we can have a clear majority in June that does not allow EPP to go with more extreme groups to the right, because there is this temptation. We have seen it on migration, how much they have moved to the far right, but also on environment, as you say. So we cannot really support this direction for Europe. We cannot rely on them. So we really need to be strong. And I think this is, I will think, what the majority of Europeans will want: a more democratic, more socially fair Europe, environmentally conscious Europe.
So we can say at the end, let's say, what we can learn from Spain is that strong socialist policies, which is delivering on fighting inflation, improving social conditions, improving society conditions, is also the model how we can fight the extreme right, and how we can also teach the conservatives, which tend to copy the extreme right, a good lesson how it is done better.
Absolutely.
We could have now continued another 20 minutes because Domènec is also the rapporteur on important files for trans-European democracy of improving our system. I just wanted to mention. And I learned also today that once we have to make a paella competition
Yes.
to find out. I also have a tripod for paella pan.
Ah, yeah?
At home.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
I won't send a picture to Erache with my paella. So maybe we will ask Domènec also once in our other series, which is called Andi kocht.
Aha, okay.
But this we do after we had a successful European election.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Excellent
Domènec.
idea.
Before you leave,
Thanks to you.
I have a present for you, like for all our visitors. It is the cup which we used here also in a clear one. So
That's so nice. Sean.
Dankeschön, gracias.
Bitteschön.
Gracias und danke fürs Zuschauen. Bis zum nächsten Mal.